There's a picture on my bookshelf, me, her, and my brother Daniel, taken 3 summers ago at Lake George. I still remember the way Ashley's hair stuck to her cheeks from the water, how Daniel was mid-laugh, sunglasses crooked, and how I was in the background, half out of frame, holding a beer like some distant friend who just happened to show up. Funny how you don't notice a crime scene until long after the crime. Anyway, I wasn't always a man people noticed. Solid job, decent health, a mortgage I could manage without crying. The kind of guy you trusted with your tools or your secrets, just not your wife, apparently. My brother, Daniel, he was the opposite. Charismatic. Loud. The kind of guy who called every bartender boss and somehow made it sound charming. Ashley liked that about him. At least, that's what she used to say. You and Daniel are so different, she told me once, on a lazy Saturday morning while we were still in our honeymoon apartment. You're like calm water. He's spark. I thought that was a compliment. Turns out, it was a prelude. Back then, I worked in home restoration. Lots of quiet time sanding old beams, breathing in dust and solitude. Ashley worked in interior design. We met at a job site. She mocked my shirt. I said she was too pretty to be a designer. 3 weeks later, she moved in. We made it look easy for a while. The unraveling wasn't dramatic at first. It was subtle. Date nights got replaced by catching up on sleep. Texts turned from flirty to functional. She'd smile less. And Daniel? He was around more, dropping by with takeout, helping her with the plants while I was working out of town. And still, I didn't suspect a thing. Because here's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't show up wearing a villain cape. No, it borrows your brother's voice. Wears your wife's perfume. Sits across from you at dinner and toasts to family. So when it finally hit me, when the truth came crashing in like a drunk uncle at a wedding, it didn't feel like a thunderclap. It felt like silence. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me rewind to the day it all started to unravel. The day I found the frame. The day Ashley came home late, again, and I decided to clean out the hallway closet to kill time. Just mindless chores to numb the waiting. That's when I found it. A box marked Lake George. Photos. Notes. A Polaroid tucked into the spine of a sketchbook she used to carry. In it, Ashley was sitting on a log, wearing Daniel's hoodie. His arm was draped around her, but the way they were looking at each other, it wasn't how family looks at each other. I stared at it for 10 full minutes, willing it to become innocent. My fingers clenched the edges until they curled. I put it back in the box and closed it. Not because I forgave it. Because I needed to be sure. And part of me, the part that still believed in her, whispered maybe I was just being paranoid. I didn't mention the photo that night. Ashley came home smelling like that overpriced candle store she loved, lemongrass and denial. She kissed me on the cheek, asked if I'd eaten, and acted like the woman I married was still behind her eyes. We sat on the couch. She scrolled through Instagram. I scrolled through thoughts like, do I confront her? Do I ask about Daniel's hoodie? But instead, I just nodded through a rerun of some home makeover show where couples pretend demolition fixes their marriage. It didn't. The next day, Daniel called. Not texted. Called. Yo, I'm crashing in your guest room for a few nights, he said like we were still in college. Everything all right? I asked, playing it cool, though my grip on the phone had gone white-knuckle. Just some apartment plumbing issues. Landlord's a tool. I'll be out of your hair by Monday. Right. Plumbing. The man had lived in that apartment 5 years. Never once mentioned a leak. Still, I said yes. Because that's what good brothers do. By the time I got home, his duffel bag was already in the guest room, and Ashley was making pasta like it was a holiday. She laughed at something he said, loud, full-belly laughter I hadn't heard from her in months. She used to laugh like that for me. At dinner, Daniel leaned back in his chair and said, Man, Ash makes the best pesto. I watched her blush. That smile wasn't for me. It was reflex. You're lucky, he added, raising his glass at me. That's when I realized I was sitting across the table from 2 people who thought I was blind. After dinner, I sat in the garage under the excuse of fixing the drill. Just me, the hum of a dying light bulb, and my thoughts. I remembered something our dad used to say when things didn't add up. People will always tell on themselves if you just stop talking long enough. So, I started watching. That weekend, Daniel slept until noon every day. Ashley, the early riser who used to clean the kitchen by 7 a.m., suddenly needed naps and long showers. One night, I got up for water and saw a sliver of light from the guest room. I stood outside the door, listened. 2 voices, hushed. Then a laugh. Her laugh. Not the fake one she gave me lately. The real one. The one that had built a life with me. I stepped away before I did something reckless. In the morning, Daniel was gone. Ashley said he left early for a job interview. Didn't want to wake you, she smiled, buttering toast. I nodded, sipped my coffee, said nothing. Later that day, I checked the guest room. He left his hoodie behind. Not the same one from the picture, this one was newer. Clean. Still warm from his skin. Ashley came home an hour later to find it folded on the bed. Oh, she said too quickly. He must have forgotten it. I stared at her. So she stared back. What? But I already knew the answer. I just wanted to hear how she'd lie. 3 days after Daniel left, I stopped pretending. Not outwardly. I still played the part. Still made breakfast. Still kissed Ashley goodbye. Still talked about mundane things like we were starring in a sitcom called Delusion and Eggs. But inside, I had stopped being her husband. Now I was something else. A detective. A witness. Maybe even the jury. That night, she went to book club. Ashley didn't read. At least, not in the last 2 years. But sure, let's pretend book club met on Thursdays at 9 p.m. in heels she only wore to impress. The moment she pulled out of the driveway, I opened her laptop. No password. God bless her arrogance. She'd left her email signed in. Not her main one, the throwaway Gmail account she used for coupons and surveys. Or so I thought. Turns out, that account was more social than I expected. Receipts. Hotel confirmations. Conversations. One thread in particular stood out, messages between her and someone labeled simply as D. I clicked it. There were no greetings. No formalities. Just D. Friday's still on? Ashley. Of course. Same room. Bring wine this time. You owe me. D. Don't I always deliver? That's when it hit me. D wasn't some stranger. It was Daniel. I stared at the screen until the words stopped meaning anything. Until the sentence, same room. You owe me. Felt like nails under my fingernails. I backed out of the email and sat there, frozen. And then, I laughed. Quiet. Short. The kind of laugh you make when the doctor shows you the x-ray and the tumor is shaped like your brother giving a thumbs up. The affair was real. But it wasn't with a coworker. Or a stranger. Or some accidental rebound. It was Daniel. The guy who taught me how to ride a bike. The guy who snuck out of prom to drive across town and bring me a change of clothes when I got sick. The guy who once told me, no girl will ever come between us, bro. I guess that line came with an expiration date. When Ashley got home, I was in bed. She kissed me on the forehead. You're warm, she said. Everything okay? I looked up at her, this woman I thought I knew, wearing perfume like armor, and said, just tired. Long day. She smiled. You're always so strong. And I smiled back. Because that's the funny thing about betrayal. Once you've seen the truth, you don't need to scream it. You just need to survive long enough to use it. The thing about truth is, once you've swallowed it, once it's in your bloodstream, there's no going back to ignorance. There's no unseeing the cracks. And me? I was drowning in cracks. The next morning, Ashley was humming in the kitchen. Humming. Making pancakes like nothing had detonated the night before. She slid a plate toward me. Extra crispy, she said, kissing my cheek like a reward. I looked at her. She didn't flinch. How's Daniel? I asked casually. She blinked, mid-sip of her coffee. What do you mean? Just wondering how the job interview went. Oh, I think he said it went fine. She looked down, stirred her cup like it owed her an answer. I nodded, chewing slowly. It's funny, when you know someone's lying, their face looks different. Like a puppet with the wrong hand up its back. I didn't ask anything else. Didn't confront her. That would have been satisfying and stupid. Because now I knew. And I wasn't angry. No, anger burns hot and fast. What I felt was colder. Sharper. Like ice in the blood. I had a plan. I started slow. A conversation here. A planted seed there. I reached out to Daniel the next day, like a good brother. Hey man, I texted. You left your hoodie. Want to grab lunch? He bit. Of course he did. Guilt makes people desperate to play normal. We met at a burger joint on Main. He showed up late, as usual, and flashed that same stupid grin he always did when he thought charm could clean up messes. You good? I asked. He leaned back, taking a lazy sip of soda. Yeah, job hunt's brutal, but you know me. Always bounce back. I nodded. Still single. He chuckled. Oh yeah. No time for attachments. Just freedom and fast food. Right. I let the silence do the heavy lifting. Eventually, he filled it. Hey. How's Ashley? There it was. I smiled. She's good. Misses you. He choked a little on his fries. I didn't flinch. We kept the small talk going, but I watched him. Every twitch. Every pause. He kept adjusting his watch. Wouldn't meet my eyes. Good. That night, I waited until Ashley was in the shower, humming that same old Fleetwood Mac tune she always defaulted to when she was in a good mood. I logged into her email again and forwarded every single message to myself. Then I changed the password. Not to lock her out, no. Just to know when she realized I'd been there. Control. That's all I wanted. I started saving everything: dates, receipts, photos. I became the curator of my own betrayal. If I was going to be the fool in this story, I'd at least be the one who wrote the ending. 2 weeks went by. They were still meeting. Still pretending. Ashley played doting wife when she needed to, and Daniel ghosted me like a bad memory. That was fine. I wasn't done watching yet. Then came the moment. Ashley was working late, again. So I called Daniel. Hey, I said. Got some bourbon. Wanna come by? Like old times. He hesitated. You sure? Why not? I replied. Just us brothers. No secrets. He said he'd be there in 20. I set the bottle on the table. 2 glasses. 1 memory card sitting neatly between them. When he arrived, he looked nervous. Good. I smiled wide and poured him a drink. Man, it's been too long, I said. He nodded, raising the glass. To family. I clinked his glass, then slid the memory card toward him. What's this? He asked. Proof, I said. Or maybe just a souvenir. Thought you might want something to remember her by when she's gone. He stared at it. His throat bobbed. I don't. Oh, you do. I cut in. Don't insult me by pretending. Not tonight. He opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. Let me ask you something, Daniel. Did you ever think about what it would do to me? Sleeping with my wife? My wife, man. Not some girl I dated in high school. My wife. Did you even hesitate? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. I leaned forward. I want you to know something, I said, my voice calm. I'm not here to scream. Or fight. Or break things. That's what people expect. That's what cheaters want. For the wronged man to explode. Because then you can point and say, see? He's crazy. No wonder she left him. I took a slow sip. But that's not how this ends. Daniel finally spoke. What are you going to do? I smiled. Nothing. He looked confused. I stood and grabbed the second glass. Because the truth is the best revenge. And you too? You're going to rot under it. Together. He frowned. I don't follow. You will, I said. Ashley doesn't know I know. Not really. But she will. Soon. He stood. Logan. Don't, I said. We're done. You've already taken what you came for. Just don't be surprised when it turns out poison tastes sweet at first. He didn't say another word. Just left. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in weeks. Because the wheels were turning now. Quiet, calculated, cruel in a way only honesty can be. And neither of them saw the cliff ahead. A week passed. I played husband like it was a role I'd auditioned for. Set the table. Kissed her cheek. Folded laundry while Ashley scrolled through her phone, the screen lighting her face like some cold little stage. And the whole time, she never once suspected that the applause had already ended. The curtain was down. The play was over. I was just walking through the empty theater, sweeping up the lies. The first real move came on a Wednesday. I slid an envelope into the mailbox with no return address. Mailed it from across town, so she'd never trace it back to me. Inside? 3 things. A screenshot of her email with Daniel. A printout of the hotel reservation. And the kicker, an old family photo of the 3 of us at Lake George. I'd circled Daniel's face in red ink. Underneath, I wrote, he was behind you even then. You just didn't bother to look. I didn't send it to Ashley. No, that would be predictable. I sent it to her mother, Margaret, the one who believed our marriage was God-ordained. The one who once told me she prayed for a son-in-law like me. The one who still used a landline and thought WhatsApp was a fitness app. 2 days later, Ashley came home pale. Quiet. Like a woman who walked into a room and found her own secrets vacuum-sealed on the table. You okay? I asked, looking up from the paper like I hadn't planned the storm she just walked through. Yeah, she said quickly. Just a weird call from my mom. Oh. She asked me if I was cheating on you. I raised an eyebrow. Well, out of the blue. Ashley swallowed. Apparently someone mailed her something. Said I was having an affair. I leaned forward slowly, like a man concerned, but not too concerned. Did she say who sent it? No, she said, fidgeting with the strap of her purse. But she mentioned Daniel. I let the name hang in the air like a guillotine. Then I chuckled. That's insane, I said. I mean, Daniel? That's disgusting. Ashley didn't laugh, because guilt doesn't find things funny. She spent the rest of the night on edge, snapping at her phone, flipping channels. She went to bed early but didn't sleep. I could hear her breathing shallow and rapid. The truth was already working its way through her bones. And I wasn't done. The second move came the next day. I called Daniel. Well, I texted him something vague and baited. You should talk to her. Before I do. I knew exactly what it would do to him. Because guilt doesn't like silence. It panics in quiet rooms. Sure enough, 30 minutes later, Ashley's phone buzzed across the table. She picked it up, scanned the screen, and stiffened like a statue. Daniel. She took the call outside. She always used to take his calls in front of me. That was the joke. That was the arrogance. Now? She stood in the backyard, pacing, gesturing with one hand, mouth tight. I stood behind the curtain and watched her through the glass door. She was unraveling. Good. Later that night, she tried to be affectionate. Made my favorite meal. Sat close on the couch. Let her leg touch mine. But her eyes kept drifting to the hallway. To her purse. Where her phone buzzed again. She didn't know whether I knew. That was the beauty of it. She was living in purgatory. 2 more days passed. Then came the final touch, my last little brushstroke on this miserable masterpiece. Sunday morning. Church. She insisted on going. Said she needed clarity. Funny how people look for God when guilt won't answer. We sat in the second row. I wore my best suit. She wore that navy blue dress that used to knock the wind out of me. Not anymore. The sermon was about truth. About how secrets rot the soul. And Ashley? She didn't take communion. She just sat there, hands folded, breathing like she might throw up in her purse. After church, we drove in silence. She finally spoke when we hit the driveway. I need to talk to you. I parked. Let the engine hum. Okay. She turned to face me. I haven't been honest with you. I nodded slowly. I figured. Her eyes welled, but no tears fell. Ashley had always been a master of controlled emotion. Crying was for people who didn't curate their image. It was a mistake, she said. It never should have happened. Define it, I said. She stared at the dashboard. Daniel. I looked out the window. Exhaled once. Then I said, Why? Her voice cracked. I don't know. I really don't. We were close, and things with us weren't the same. He made me feel seen again. I nodded. Did it feel worth it? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. I was going to tell you, she whispered. When? When it was over. I turned to her, finally. It is now. She looked up, hopeful. You're forgiving me? I shook my head. No. I opened the glove box and handed her a stack of papers, everything I'd collected. Receipts, emails, timestamps, a copy of the envelope I'd sent to her mother. Her hand shook as she flipped through it. You planned this, she whispered. I gave you rope, I said. You tied the knot. Ashley started to speak, but stopped. Because how do you argue with the truth when it's wearing your lipstick and smells like your brother? I didn't shout, didn't threaten, didn't tell her to leave. Instead, I handed her a blank sheet of paper. I want you to write it down, I said. All of it. Everything you did. When, where, how long. Don't lie. This is your last gift to me. Why? So I don't have to explain it to anyone, I said. You will. She stared at the page. And I walked inside. Because sometimes, revenge doesn't need fire. Sometimes, it just needs APN.IT took her 3 hours. 3 hours alone at the kitchen table. No music. No TV. Just her, a pen, and the reality she thought she could bury. She used my favorite coffee mug, which was cute. Like caffeine could soften the edge of guilt. When she finally slid the paper toward me, her hand was shaking. I didn't reach for it right away. I let the silence stretch until she broke it. I wrote everything, she said. I'll be the judge of that, I replied, picking it up like it was a verdict. It was handwritten. 8 pages. Neat, precise, like a homework assignment she hoped might still earn a passing grade. She titled it A Full Account. And let me tell you, Ashley didn't hold back. Dates, times, rooms. Even one night they spent in our home while I was away on a business trip. My brother in my house. In my bed. She actually wrote, it felt wrong, but he made me feel alive again. Alive. What a word to choose. I folded the pages without a word and slid them into a manila envelope labeled in black ink. Insurance. She watched me like someone waiting to hear whether they still had a job. She didn't. You're divorcing me, she said, more statement than question. I shrugged. Wasn't that your plan eventually? She swallowed hard. I didn't want to lose you. I lost myself. Then you should have looked for yourself somewhere that didn't share my last name. That shut her up. I stood, walked to the living room, picked up the small box I'd hidden behind the bookshelf. Inside were the duplicates, every email, every text, the confession letter. She followed me, voice catching in her throat. What are you going to do with that? I looked at her like she'd just asked me what a fireman does with water. Let the truth do its job. First, I sent copies to her boss. Ashley worked at a boutique design firm with a squeaky clean image. Family first branding. Trust, integrity, all that jazz. I sent the envelope to HR anonymously. Her affair with a client, which Daniel had pretended to be once, violated 3 different workplace conduct codes. I underlined them. Just being helpful. Next, her church group. The women's circle she led on Tuesday nights. They thought she was a role model. I thought they deserved a revised resume. I dropped an unmarked envelope in the offering box after service. A few pages from her confession letter and one photo I'd saved, the one where Daniel was shirtless in our backyard hammock, Ashley curled into his side like a stray cat with a secret. I figured that was enough to cancel potluck. Then came the best part. The family reunion group chat. Every year, her side of the family rents a lake house, 20 relatives and 2 jet skis pretending to be peacekeepers. I'd always been the quiet one. The guy who grilled and smiled and washed dishes no one thanked me for. This year, I dropped a single message into the group. Hey fam, thought I'd let you know that Ashley's been sleeping with my brother for the past 8 months. If anyone wants to hear the full story, I've got it all. Also, I won't be attending the reunion. I'll be too busy not being a punchline anymore. No emojis. No follow-ups. Just silence. Then one by one, they left the chat. Not me. I stayed in. Watched the dominoes fall. Ashley lost her job 2 weeks later. Breach of moral contract, they called it. Image inconsistency. Basically, she got caught being someone no one wanted to endorse. Daniel? Well, Daniel tried to play it cool. Reached out to me once. Said, "You've made your point. Can we talk?" I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the letter to his girlfriend. Did I mention he had one? Sweet girl. Elementary school teacher. She once gave me a mug that said number 1 brother-in-law. I mailed her the envelope with a sticky note. You deserve better. This isn't revenge. It's a courtesy. The next day, she dumped him and moved out of his apartment while he was at work. Took the dog. Left the TV. Brutal, efficient, honestly, I respected her style. Back at home, Ashley had turned into a ghost in yoga pants. She floated around the house like she'd been banished from the land of the living. No job, no calls. Just long showers and the occasional burst of tears she tried to stifle behind closed doors. I never stopped her. I wasn't cruel. I was clinical. I let her exist beside the truth she created, like a shadow trying to outrun the sun. We had one last conversation before the papers were served. She stood in the kitchen, arms folded like armor. Do you hate me? She asked, quietly. I shook my head. No. That surprised her. You don't. I don't have the energy, I said. Hating you would mean you still matter. That landed. You could see it in her eyes, the moment she realized she wasn't the villain in my story anymore. She was the footnote. And Daniel? He was the asterisk beside her name. The night before she moved out, she left me a note. No envelope. Just a torn piece of notebook paper on the counter. I'm sorry I hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect understanding. But I hope someday you find peace. Ashley. I read it once, then fed it to the shredder. Because peace doesn't come from apologies. It comes from knowing you told the truth louder than they told the lie. Daniel didn't call again. He texted once. Just one word. Why? I stared at it for a while. Didn't respond. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because there wasn't one that would change what he'd already broken. He'd gambled our bond on temporary comfort. I decided to let him keep the comfort. The silence between us became a monument, cold, tall, undeniable. But silence isn't the same as peace. One evening, I ran into our mom. She hadn't chosen sides, hadn't said much of anything, but the weight of everything hung around her like a wet coat. He's a mess, she said softly, meaning Daniel. Hasn't been to work. Lost a lot of weight. You were always the strong one, you know. I didn't reply. She looked at me, eyes damp. You two were best friends once. No, I said. We were brothers. That was the mistake. I thought it meant the same thing. After Ashley moved out, the house didn't feel empty. It felt clean. No fake smiles, no second guessing, no perfume on pillows that weren't meant for me. Just space. Honest air. Quiet floors. I replaced the bed. Gave the couch away. Painted the guest room a shade of blue Daniel always hated. It was petty. It was therapeutic. I also started journaling. Not for poetry. Just to get it all out of my head and onto paper where it couldn't rot me from the inside. Then, I took a trip. Alaska. By myself. A cabin, a journal, and a lot of coffee. I hiked. I stared at mountains, and I breathed air that didn't know my name. And slowly, piece by piece, I came back to myself. Not the version Ashley loved. Not the version Daniel envied. Just me. Unapologetically, quietly me. About 6 months later, Ashley reached out. Email, of all things. Hey, I don't expect a response. I just wanted you to know. I'm in therapy now. I've been trying to figure out why I ruined everything. You didn't deserve what happened. I still see your face when I try to sleep. That's not guilt. It's recognition. You were the best thing in my life. I hope you're happy. I hope you found someone who loves you the way I should have. Ash. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because I didn't need to. She wrote that for herself. To confess. To let go. And I had already done both, a long time ago. Here's the part they never saw coming. The revenge wasn't the letters, or the job loss, or the silence. It wasn't the church group exile or the scorched family threat. No. The real revenge? It was surviving well. It was letting them sit in the truth while I walked away lighter. Daniel ended up moving to another state. I heard it through Mom. She said he's doing freelance work, keeping to himself. No new friends. No long-term relationships. Not a shock. Ashley tried dating again, but word travels. The same people she lied to now saw her clearly. The shine never came back. You can't rebrand when people know your product's made of betrayal. And me? I rebuilt. Not out of spite. Out of necessity. I met someone, eventually. No rushing. No forced fairy tale. Just a kind woman who asked how I liked my coffee and actually listened to the answer. She never made me feel like a placeholder. She never laughed too hard at another man's jokes. She wasn't spark. She was steady fire. One day, I might tell her the story. Or maybe I won't. Because the past? It doesn't define me anymore. It built me. Brick by brutal brick. But I walk on a different path now, solid, earned, and completely my own. And that's the cruelest revenge of all.